Chapter 547, Shinra Tensei. As soon as Nagato's indifferent yet murderous voice resounded, an invisible but majestic repulsive force burst out from his palm. Similar to the previous Super Shinra Tensei used by Tendo Pain that flattened almost the entire Konoha village in just a single attack, the attack that Nagato used this time against Yama required the same amount of effort with a similar level of chakra consumption and the same input of visual prowess of his rinnegan. But of course, despite the same effort, there were still various differences in the resulting attack. One of the differences is the difference in the destructive power and resultant force produced by the attack. That is, the Super Shinra Tensei released by Nagato against Yama is far, far stronger compared to the Super Shinra Tensei used by Tendo Pain to destroy Konoha. The reason for such a difference in the resultant power, despite the same effort and same inputs, is the loss of chakra during the transmission process. When Nagato performed the same attack while using the Tendo Pain, some of the chakra was lost, or perhaps consumed in better terminology, during the transmission process. At the same time, the Tendo Pain's body, which is actually just a corpse, couldn't really bear the full pressure of Nagato's chakra and the rinnegan in his eye sockets. Therefore, all the large-scale and full-powered attacks that Tendo Pain performed were limited in their upper limits and couldn't really display Nagato's true power. The reason for informing such an obvious fact is to highlight just how strong Nagato's main body, that is, he himself, is. Anyway, all that aside, whoosh! The boundless and majestic repulsive force released by Nagato swept the entire battlefield and seemed to overwhelm everyone. Although it was just some colorless and invisible force of repulsion, however, because of how abnormally powerful this force was, it even distorted the very air itself, which was a medium of transmission of this force. The distortion and compression of air gave off a shining silver halo and produced pitch-black and blood-red sparks in the air. Faced with such an attack, the shinobis of the 5 great nations who were present behind Yama and treating or rescuing the injured ones were immediately panicked. It didn't wait for even an instant as everyone subconsciously stopped whatever they were doing and looked at the shining silver halo with pitch-black and blood-red sparks coming in their direction, with pale expressions that were filled with nothing except for a horrifying look as if facing death itself. Even if they know that Yama should be able to deal with such an attack, they still couldn't help but get worried over the what-if possibility. And to be honest, nobody could blame them for their worry. After all, it wasn't their fault. This is just basic human nature. Nothing one can do about it. Sandaime Hokage, who has already suffered damage from such an attack not long ago, subconsciously raised both of his hands to quickly weave hand signs in order to use a defensive jutsu, but stopped halfway through. The reason why Sandaime Hokage stopped halfway through is that he suddenly realized something, and this something is the fact that even if he has mastered an uncountable number of jutsus to be hailed as the professor, he still had no jutsu in his arsenal that would be able to cope up with the situation in front of him. At such a close distance, facing an attack several times more powerful than the one that destroyed almost the entire Konoha village, he could do only one thing, and that is to pray. Pray that the leader of Amatsukami is capable of countering such an attack, else it would be death for all of them. And just as everyone felt desperate, Yama, who has already finished rescuing almost all the injured and wounded, raised his right hand like Nagato and pressed forward into the void. It was at this very moment the heartbeat-like resonance between Yama's Tenseigan and the giant Tenseigan on the moon was completely completed. It was also at this very moment when the chakra of the giant Tenseigan had crossed the distance of several 100,000 miles between the moon and the earth, and poured into Yama's body in the form of an endless stream. And using the endless stream of Tenseigan chakra pouring into his body, Yama countered Nagato's Super Shinra Tensei with his own Super Shinra Tensei. Counter. The moment Yama pushed his right hand forward, another repulsive force abruptly appeared on the battlefield and rushed towards the incoming attack from Nagato. The chakra of the giant Tenseigan on the moon is extremely powerful. It is even exaggerated to the point of being able to drive the entire moon directly towards Earth without much consumption. This point was proven in the canon, where Otsutsuki Toneri wanted to forcefully collide the moon with the Earth to destroy the shinobi world established by Rikudo Sennin in order to fulfill the so-called last will of Hamura. Regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, one thing to note is that Toneri believed and had full confidence that the giant Tenseigan on the moon would not only be able to shield the castle located in the core part of the moon from the resulting impact brought by the collision of the moon with the Earth, but it will also be able to help him make the world anew. You know, the resulting impact brought by the collision of the moon with the Earth would most likely create a planetary explosion, not your run-of-the-mill explosion, but a fussing planetary explosion, not to mention make the world anew. How is that shit even possible? And yet Toneri had such confidence. This just goes to show how absurdly powerful the giant Tenseigan on the moon is. Therefore, even when supported by the measly chakra of the giant Tenseigan on the moon, Yama's simple counterattack was in no way inferior to Nagato's Shinra Tensei. Whoosh! It didn't take long for the two repulsive forces to slam into each other, and the moment the two collided, the surrounding air that was affected by the repulsive forces was continuously distorted and compressed, then resulted in a huge explosion. Boom, 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 but it didn't stop just there. Even the valley where the battlefield is located couldn't bear the resulting confrontation between these two repulsive forces and started to shake violently. Shake, shake, rumble, rumble, rumble. Following the terrible shaking which knocked down almost everyone except for the Kage class individuals, the entire valley gradually started to crack open at a speed visible to the naked eye, and within just a few more seconds, the entire valley was torn apart from the middle. Boom, rumble, rumble, rumble. Smoke and dust start to rise up, but under the compression of the two colliding repulsive forces, it formed a nearly flat screen in the middle. The splattered gravel and dust were also crushed into fine dust particles and merged with the flat dust screen in the middle. Monsters! These two are simply monsters! Nobody knew who muttered such a thing in nervousness, but everyone who was watching the two couldn't help but agree with him. Looking at the pieces of land that were being gradually pushed away from the meeting point of the two repulsive forces, the two sides that were separating further and further, and the bottomless earth fissure that appeared in the middle, all the onlookers were stunned. But more than stunned, they were baffled. No one imagined that fights between shinobi can also take such a form. When they thought of shinobi confrontation, people usually thought of colorful but dangerous ninjutsu, wonderful shuriken and kunai, throwing techniques that required all sorts of calculations, graceful and elusive kenjutsu techniques, high strength-based as well as gentle taijutsu techniques, less impactful but more deadly genjutsu techniques, fuinjutsu techniques that required high IQ, as well as various types of kekkei genkai that are rooted in blood and whatnot. But this, none had imagined before. Who can think that just by raising their right arms, the leaders of Amatsukami and Akatsuki can change the entire terrain of the battlefield? Even the Sandeme Hokage Hiruzen and Sandeme Tsuchikage Onoki, who have lived in this shinobi world for several decades and have their fair share of experiences, could have never imagined that one day they would witness such a scene of battle between two shinobi. At this time, both looked at each other with bitter expressions on their faces and could guess each other's thoughts, because both of them felt their worldview collapsing. In fact, the people of the 5 great shinobi villages weren't the only ones who were shocked. Even Conan, Madara, Toby, and the hidden Zetsu were shocked by the sight before them. Of course, the cause of their shock was different. Although it was the first time they have witnessed Nagato use such a powerful Shinra Tensei, what surprised them more is the fact that despite using such a terrifying Shinra Tensei, Nagato still couldn't gain a slight upper hand against Yama. Among the 5 Nabeda 6 members of Akatsuki present here, the one most troubled and angered was undoubtedly Black Zetsu. Just how in the heck is this possible? He, who has lived in this shinobi world for almost a millennium, is the one most clear about Nagato's strength. The changes in Nagato just after the implantation of Hashirama cells had already made him feel quite uneasy, because he realized the fact that Nagato had grown too powerful and could no longer be controlled as easily as before. This is also the reason why he compelled Obito to take back his other eye. But what he didn't expect was that even after Nagato underwent such earth-shaking changes, there is still someone who can match and perhaps even overwhelm Nagato. Is it really as I thought? Is Yama really a descendant of Hamura? Muttered Black Zetsu with a gloomy tone. While Black Zetsu was gloomy, Madara was also filled with anxiety as he looked at Yama. Of course, Madara did not forget to pay special attention to Homusubi behind Yama, because it hasn't been very long since he fell into Homusubi's trap and was sealed inside the sword of Totsuka, so his memories are still quite vivid. Therefore, he is clearer than anyone that Homusubi in front of him is a sinister and calculative guy. No, in his opinion, all the Homusubi of the Amatsukami are despicable and shameless people. Therefore, in Madara's eyes, the threat of Homusubi is no less than Yama, and Madara even believes that if he were to mistakenly ignore or forget the existence of the subordinate named Homusubi, just because the big boss Yama is present on the battlefield, he will definitely suffer another loss at the hands of Homusubi. So, even if he is cautious of the big boss Yama, Madara is still more afraid of Homusubi, who is capable of sealing him inside the sword of Totsuka. In fact, at this time, Madara even felt a little regretful for his earlier stupidity. He felt that he should have saved Hiruko early and not let him suffer such serious damage at the hands of Fujin. That way, the Akatsuki organization wouldn't have lost a Super Kage-class combat personnel. But no way. What's done is done already. Now he can only hope that Hiruko does not die and manage to survive. Although, according to Zetsu's analysis of Hiruko's current state, the probability of Hiruko's survival is very less, so he doesn't have much hope anyway. Therefore, Madara is really a bit regretful. And while Madara was feeling regretful for not saving Hiruko, Conan looked at Nagato with a worried expression on her face, but neither did she try to stop Nagato, nor did she speak anything else to disturb him, and chose to remain silent. The situation has already developed to such a point where even she couldn't speak about retreating. Of course, the option of retreat is still in her mind, but for them to safely retreat, they must find a suitable opportunity. Otherwise, the attempt to retreat from just this battlefield and the land of fire will result in the retreat from the shinobi world itself. At the same time, on the moon. Although the temple where the giant Tenseigan is enshrined is brightly lit because of the glowing giant Tenseigan, overall, it still retains its silent and solemn atmosphere. Since the resonance between Yama's Tenseigan and the giant Tenseigan was neither a first-time occurrence, nor was it established through a forced or crude approach, there was no alarm, and coupled with the fact that, currently, there is no one present inside the temple, so the unusualness of the giant Tenseigan went unnoticed. Of course, sometimes people are just so damn unlucky that even if everything they do is perfect, the Lady Luck still gives a harsh kick in their balls. As is the case this time. Although no one on the moon noticed the unusualness of the giant Tenseigan, which allowed Yama to re-establish resonance with the giant Tenseigan without any hindrance, and use its chakra without alerting anyone. However, tonight just happened to be the night when the puppets who are responsible for cleaning the temple came into the temple. Of course, for cleaning the temple. What is the probability of such a thing happening today and right at this moment? Regardless of whatever the actual probability fraction is, the moment the cleaning puppets noticed the unusualness of the giant Tenseigan, a commotion seemed to have broken out, and all the puppets panicked. After a while, the leader of cleaning puppets, who is also a puppet, calmed all the puppets, then took some of the puppets and ran towards the direction of the living quarters of the elder to report the unusualness of the giant Tenseigan.